only have 3 cars. Once you have crashed all 3 cars, the game is over. Okay. Are there any questions so far? Nope. Okay. So the next question is, how do I make the sprite here or the stage be more interactive? In other words, if I just want the program to do some simple calculations, I want to find out what is, let's say, x squared. Give me a number and I will return the square of that number. How can I write a simple program just like that? All I want is for Scratch to ask me, input a number, okay, and then it gives me a prompt. I type in, let's say, 20, and then the sprite will do the calculation, and then it will say the square of this number is 400. Yep.
We need to set up a program with an operator to multiply 2 different numbers or
okay.
2 different inputs.
Okay, that's a good way to do it. So what we can do in this case, is we will start to use the scripting ability of a sprite. When you specify a program for a sprite, you always want to start with when green flag is clicked. Okay, when green flag clicked is basically saying that when you click this green flag here, it will trigger the execution of the program. Okay, and then what you want to do is to, well, let's just make this program not so interesting first, and then we'll step by step make it more interactive and more interesting. So you have to go to variables. The first thing you want to do is to change variable x to a particular value, and then you can do the computation. Now the computation can be done just like this. Okay, you can basically set it again, but this time on the right hand side, you don't want to set it to 0 anymore. You can set it to the computation of the result. To find out what you can do, or the library of existing operators, you can go to the green tab here, which shows you all the available operators in Scratch. Now this is also nice because in a real programming language such as C, Perl, PHP, Python, and etc., you don't really know what operators are supported. Okay, you don't know exactly. Oh, can I have a to the power of the operator? Okay, because you have to look up the language reference just to see whether that is actually supported or not. Over here, every operator that is supported is listed here. And we can see that it supports the addition, subtraction. I mean, the screen is not really that good. You can't really see it. This is multiplication, division. You can use a random number generator. Excuse me. And a random generator can be very useful for various types of games, so they can randomize certain aspects of the game so it's not as predictable anymore. We have the less than, equal to, and greater than operators, but they don't really do computations. They check to see if a value is greater than, equal to, or less than another value. You have conjunction, disjunction, and negation. Those are logical operators. It allows you to combine 2 true-false values into 1. We have, basically quote-unquote string operations. These are for joining 2 words together into a sentence, or extracting 1 letter out of, a string, basically all letters, and finding out how long a string is. And then we have the mod operator, which is finding the remainder of a division, a round operator, which turns a non-integer number into an integer, and then we have a general function. Now this can be useful because it gives you a list of the math functions that we can actually perform in Scratch. Yes?
So if you're creating a game, a simple game in Scratch, you could use this to create a point system?
A point? Yes, absolutely.
Like to acquire points or even money in the game?
Yes. Yep. Basically, you can use 1 variable to control how much gold the character has.
Right, or whatever. Like if you do a certain action, and that increases it or decreases
exactly.
it.
You can use 1 to control, how much gold the character has.
Right.
1 to control the hit points.
Right.
So when the character picks up an item, that can increase the hit point. You can have another 1 to control shields. So 1 hit or 20 hits. From a weapon will reduce to say 2 if you have a really good shield or something like that. Yes, you can have all sorts of variables, to each one controlling a specific attribute of that character.
So if you're creating a game, a simple game in Scratch, you could use this to acquire points or even money in the game?
Exactly.
That's cool.
Yep. Basically, quote unquote, string operators. Just going through this part here. So we do have, to the power of, but not in the way of, a number to the power of another number. You have absolute value, square root, sine, cosine, tangent, arc sine, arc cosine, arc tangent. This is natural log. This is log using base 10. This is e to the power of something. That's 10 to the power of something. But I do not see squared here. But that's not a problem. Square is easy to do with multiplication. So what we need to do, if I want to find out what is x squared, is to drag and drop the multiplication operator into the right-hand side of the set operation. But right now, there's nothing specified here. What I need to do is to go back to variables and drag x into the right-hand side, the left-hand side of the multiplication, and also one more time to the right-hand side of the multiplication operator. So right now, this particular statement is saying set x to x times x, which seems to be really confusing, okay? Because it seems to be a circular type of logic. If I change the value of x, doesn't that also change the square of x? Well, it kind of looks like that, but it's not. Because the set operation only performs things in two distinct steps. The first thing it does is to evaluate the right-hand side. In other words, it will take the current value of x and say, okay, what is the square of the current value of x? That will give you a specific number, okay, depending on how you set x. That number, in return, will be used to update x, and that's it, okay? Step 1, step 2, we're done. Are we doing okay so far with the concept of setting the value of a variable? Okay. Let's just say this is the end of the program. Okay, we don't want the program to do too much at this point. We will stop it right after this. Okay, and what we will do is we'll hard code the initial value of x so that we can, see whether it works and do all the computations correctly. Let's go ahead and change this to say 5. Okay. In other words, my program is now hard coding the initial value of x to be 5, and then it will try to compute the square of 5. We'll run the program, and when the program is done, x has a value of 25. Is that what you expect the program to do? Okay. So the program works just fine, at this point, but it's not really that interesting because it is always going to find the square of 5. Okay? Once you know the square of 5 is 25, the next time you run the program, you probably don't want to find the same thing again. What is the square of 5? So it may be more useful if I can make the program more interactive. In other words, let the program ask the end user to input a number and then find the square of that number. Is that making any sense? To make the program more interactive. So to change the program to do that, let me see if I can do this. I want to save the program, but this time I want to save it to, let me make a folder for today. And at the end of the class, someone can remind me to upload that folder that contains all the Scratch programs that I have done today. So we'll go ahead and create a folder for today. This is the last day of November. And this way I can save the program into that folder. At the end of the class, I can upload the folder as a zip file onto Moodle, and you guys can just download everything. Then you have the source of all the programs that I worked with today. Okay. And I just need to specify a name here. Simple squared. In other words, this program just computes the square of a number. Everything is hard-coded. Okay. So the next version of this program, I will have to save the program again, this time under a different name. I'll call this interactive square, which means the program is interactive. It will specifically ask you to input a number, then find out what the square is. To do that, you have to look into, if I remember correctly, you have to go to looks first because you want to make a prompt and say, give me a number. Okay.
Sensing has the ask blank.
Yep. Oh, okay. Sensing ask. Oh, very good. So if you look at this particular construct here called ask, blah, 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 and wait, it is a way for Scratch to give you a little speech bubble and say, okay, I'm waiting for you to give me a value. And here is a text box for you to type something in. When you press OK or the Enter key, then the program will proceed. We'll just go ahead and click this one, and change, the text that it's asking, and just say ask input a number. Okay? And then what I'll do is instead of dragging this into the program right away, I'll just click it and see what it does. Okay, Scratch is nice in a way because you can experiment with a particular step without putting it into a program first. Give it one click, and this is what it does. It has a little speech bubble. Whatever you put into this part here appears in the speech bubble. It also gives you a text box. And the text box allows you to input something. So you can say, in this case, let's say 15. To make the program go again, you have to click either the check button here, or you can press the Enter key if I remember correctly. So I'll try the Enter key first, and it let me proceed after this step. So I'll just go ahead and insert this step to over here. And now we have a problem because, okay, let me just run the program and you can see what the problem is. Okay, I run the program. Okay, perfect. It asks me, about the number. I can enter a number, let's say 15. Click, and yet it is still using 5 as the number to square. The problem has to do with the ordering, and also, one statement does not have a link to the other statement. In other words, the number that I entered in the blue step here somehow is not related to the second step, which changes the value of x to that number. There's no linkage to the number that I entered to the calculation of the square. Are we doing okay so far? So we need to somehow link the number that I entered in the text box to the calculation, or at least put it into x first, then we can do the calculation. And if you think about it, it's all here. Okay, here's answer. Answer is basically the answer to the question that we asked earlier. Whatever it is, whatever you type in the text box is quote-unquote the answer. But you have to remember, you don't want to ask a second question before you make some use out of the answer to the first question, because answer can only remember the answer to the very last question that Scratch asked. Is that okay so far? Okay, if you ask 2 questions, you better make use of the answer to the first question before you ask the second question. Well, since we only have 1 question here, that is not a problem. So what I want to do now is to link the answer of this question to this step here. Well, the easiest way to do it is simply to drag answer into the 5 to replace the 5. So if you look at the code now, the first thing it does is to ask a question which prompts input a number, and then it will wait for you to type a number and then press the Enter key or click the checkbox. The second step is to change the variable x to whatever you typed earlier. Okay, if you type 15, x will have a value of 15. And then the third step will compute x times x, which is x squared, and then use that value to update x itself. Okay? So we want to see if this program works now, or at least work as expected. We'll run the program again, and this time we input 15. Click, and x now has a value of 225, which is the square of 15. The program works fine. Okay. Are there any questions at this point about the program?